seeking a professional, are they trained in this work? Are they trained in betrayal trauma? ABSAT certainly offers that training, but so I feel like the greater field still has some learning to do, which, is one of the reasons we do this podcast for everybody.
Well, and I want to expand that to not just professionals, but I mean, look at, I imagine today we have some, and I don't know if it's sex addiction or infidelity, but something happens and someone in the public eye does something, especially if they're a man, will usually get some character, you'll find a bunch of comments that'll look at characteristics of the partner as to why, and it's Judith Herman talked about this in what, 90s, whatever it was, about why are we looking at characteristics of perpetration in the victim. And I bet today, if we looked, we could find evidence of this. So I think we still have a bigger cultural shift to do, to not, find explanations for people's behaviors based on the victim. So I think we've shifted. I agree, but I still think we have a long way to go as a whole society.
I agree with you. My concern, one of my jobs for several years was assistant professor doing counselor education. And so when these students are going through their graduate programs to go out and become a counselor, a therapist, they don't have adequate information on addiction. But there's more about that than there would be about any kind of betrayal trauma or infidelity related or sexual trauma even. They don't come out and get licensed with that information unless they get additional training. So it's hard for people to find folks that they can afford or that they know how to look for someone that has a specialty in this. So I think getting into our grad schools is going to be really important to start getting this information earlier so that all of our providers know how to at least initially respond. But right now, they're lucky to get something on addiction, maybe a little bit on sex addiction. But I only know of one chapter about betrayal trauma with partners, and that's because Janice and I wrote it, and it's in one textbook. So that's Janice Cottle. So there's a big need there.
Yeah, I took a 2-unit. I only had in my grad school program, I had a 2-unit addictions class. And I don't think sex addiction was ever even discussed, even mentioned at all, ever, if I remember right.
Yeah, wasn't in any of mine. I would be the one to bring it up when I was teaching.
I think this is common in our field where there's so much to be done. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of progress in the last 20 odd years. And there's so much to do still.
Yeah.
Which I think, Tim, you said it, like overwhelming, invigorating, hopeful, and a lot to do.
Well, it's that difficulty. And I guess what I want people out there, when people are looking for a therapist, I want them to be smart consumers. Because when we come out of graduate school, we haven't been trained to be specialists. We've been trained to be able to sit in a room and connect with a person and help them guide through what's going on. And we understand some of the nuances of what goes on in the past, but we don't have a lot of experience with it. And we certainly don't have specialties. And that stuff all comes after graduation through experience and certification programs and all the other stuff that we study. And so, just finding a therapist doesn't mean that they know anything about addiction, anything about the specialty of sex addiction, and anything about betrayal trauma, let alone betrayal trauma when you're in relationship to a sex addict. And so if that's what you're struggling with, find somebody who knows that stuff, because just a general therapist isn't going to have, I didn't have any of this knowledge and information when I first started in this field. I learned a lot as I went along the way.
And on that, Tim, can I even say, I mean, I think it's even hard. We have more resources than ever to find good specialists, but I think it's difficult because I can sign up for some, marketing system and have a checkbox. Yes, I specialize in sex addiction, but that doesn't mean I've done any training. It just means, I'm opening myself to a market of people. So I think it's hard, I think, for consumers to find, good, helpful support that is specialized in this. And that's why AppStats has a whole directory to understand, these are the people that have been trained and certified to work with betrayal trauma and treat it effectively.
Yeah, I guess the advice I would give is, if you're a consumer out there and you're looking for a therapist and you go to one of those therapist websites where they're all listed, and you see a therapist who has almost every
That's a good
specialty
point.
checked,
It might be a flag.
Might be a giveaway, yeah.
they're not the person you should see. If you've got somebody like like I do sex addiction work, I can do trauma work and I can do depression work and anxiety, but when you find somebody like this is my specialty,